And if this postseason can get any more crazy than it has been, well, we just reached a new level, man. The Brooklyn Nets have been defeated by the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 7, man. I'm here to talk about it. As you know, it's Rick Knows Hoops. I'm your host, Tyreek. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new. It's a place where we talk about NBA basketball, so if you love hoops, this is the place for you. And what a Game 7 that this was, man. Definitely one of the best games, if not the best game of the postseason so far. Very back and forth contest. Both teams really came to play. The stars came to play too. Kevin Durant, Giannis. Got to give a lot of respect to those guys. Got to give a lot of credit to James Harden for playing on an injured hamstring. I know how tough that's been for him, but he's been pushing through, and he was effective tonight as well. But the Milwaukee Bucks were able to pull this game out, man. And I got to give credit, of course, to Giannis because he played an amazing game. Especially on the offensive side, man. He was very efficient. He was picking his spots very well. He shot the free throw better than I think he has this entire playoff series, so shout out to him. Even though he did airball too, but he made the most of his opportunities from the free throw line, and he wasn't really settling too much for three-point shots. I think he ended up taking like 3 or 4 attempts, but, you know, he was more so free throw line in, making the most of those opportunities. Got to give a lot of credit to him for staying in attack mode. And I also got to give a lot of credit to Khris Middleton and Jrue Holiday. I got to give a lot of credit to those guys because they played as poor as you can play through the first 3 quarters. They played terrible, especially Jrue Holiday. He was bad. I think at one point he was like 2 for 17 or something. He was terrible. But him and Khris Middleton hit some big shots down the stretch in the fourth quarter to help give the Bucks a late lead. But then Kevin Durant, KD, made some shots down the stretch, and he made the ultimate shot to send it to overtime. One of the toughest buckets that you will see. But once it got to OT, you could just tell guys were fatigued, man. James Harden looked completely out of gas. KD looked out of gas as well. Even Giannis didn't look like he was full of energy. Really, it was a low-scoring overtime period, and the Bucks did just enough to get the win, man. Big shout-out to them. The coaching in this game was very, very off, I think, on both sides. I do give Coach Bud a little more credit this postseason because he makes slight adjustments, but there were some times where I just think like you could do a little bit better. One of them was like when KD was cooking the way he was. I mean, down the stretch, you have the defensive player of the year, and you decide not to put Giannis on KD at any stretch in the game. And it came back to bite them, I think, in the fourth quarter. KD had a big fourth quarter, and Giannis didn't see any defensive assignments. And on the other side, KD was guarding Giannis down the stretch. So, I don't know, just interesting decisions there by Coach Bud. His rotations were a little different, but I guess it was effective. It was effective. I still don't understand why Bobby Portis has seen no playing time really in these last 3 games, but they were able to pull the last 2 games out. So, credit to the Milwaukee Bucks for being able to win this game. And as for the Brooklyn Nets, yeah, I mean, we talked about during the season, like, what could be the downfall of this team. It was defense, and it was staying healthy. And I think their defense was actually much improved in the postseason and in this series. I don't think their defense was poor. I do think, though, just the injuries really caught up to them. And, guys had trouble staying healthy all season long. I mean, KD missed a big portion of the season. James Harden, who's usually as durable as they come, missed time with the hamstring injury. He missed time in this postseason with the hamstring injury. And then Kyrie Irving missing the last 3.5 games of this series was big time. Big time. I mean, it's hypothetical, but a Kyrie Irving in this game probably makes a big time difference. So it's tough. I mean, it's like a what if, like what could have been for this Nets team, but they fought to the very end. But it's been a crazy postseason, I think, in general, man. It's been a crazy postseason in general. And now the Brooklyn Nets are out, and the Milwaukee Bucks are the first team in the Eastern Conference to punch their ticket to the conference finals, man. Another Game 7 tomorrow between Philly and the Atlanta Hawks. We'll see who the matchup will be. But, yeah, the Bucks, man, big shout-out to them for this win. If you didn't watch this game, I definitely feel very bad for you because this was an amazing game. This is exactly what a Game 7 should be. Exactly what a Game 7 should be. Shout out to guys like PJ Tucker for having a really big impact in this game. Even though KD's gonna get his buckets, man, PJ Tucker was making it as tough on KD as you can possibly do, man. He was making KD catch the ball 35 feet from the bucket and basically making KD work. And I think as the game went on, it really started to wear on KD. It really did, and you could see on that final possession, in which I do think Steve Nash should have called a timeout for the simple reason that KD, James Harden, they've played the entirety of this game. They're gassed. You want to put your players in a position to where they don't have to, just get them into the spot so they can operate there instead of having to dribble into a shot. And that's what KD had to do. Ended up putting up an air ball. You can just tell he was completely gassed. I just think as a coach, you get paid in those moments to make, to draw plays. You get paid in those moments. That's one of the few things that you get paid for as a coach is, it's really like organizational skills and ATOs after timeouts. You get paid to do that stuff. And Steve Nash not calling a timeout there. You can't take the timeout with you. You're going home. You can't take the timeout with you. You might as well call a timeout. Put your best play towards KD, get him into his best spot, and get a shot up instead of having to dribble against an amazing defender like Jrue Holiday. And that's why KD was forced into a very tough shot, even tougher than the one that he hit at the end of regulation. So in that situation, there's sometimes I think it's okay to let it play out. But in that situation, when your guys are gassed, you got to put them in a position to get a good shot. And Steve Nash didn't do that. He decided not to call a timeout. I don't agree with that decision at all. Rookie head coach making a rookie mistake, I would say. So that was a big time, I think, error on Steve Nash's part. But I'm not a head coach, so I'm not going to speak too much more on that. But anyways, got to give a lot of credit. Pat Connaughton had a big impact in this game, too, off the bench. In his 23 minutes, he hit 3 3-pointers. He made a lot of great, just like hustle plays, really good hustle plays, whether it was like a tip out for an offensive rebound or something like that. He made a lot of very good plays. I mentioned Khris Middleton starting to heat up down the stretch. He hit some big shots in the fourth quarter. I think he hit a big one in overtime as well. And Brook Lopez, got to give Brook Lopez his credit, too, because he was somebody I thought, like, in Game 5 shouldn't have been on the court because he was getting torn up. But he made some big plays in this game. He had a very good game, 19 points, 8 rebounds. Had a big block on KD in overtime as well down the stretch. Big shout-out to Brook Lopez because somebody that could have easily, I feel like, fallen out of the rotation. But he adjusted. And we seen, guys in this postseason not being able to adjust. Like Rudy Gobert last night wasn't able to adjust to guarding Terrence Mann. I think Brook Lopez did an amazing job tonight adjusting to the defensive scheme and guarding a small ball lineup. So shout out to him. And really just, the Bucks, I think everybody they came to play. Giannis, I didn't even realize Giannis had 40 points, but he had 40 points. He was big time in this game. And his guys like Jrue Holiday, Khris Middleton, they came through when they needed them to the most. Giannis got them there, and his guards finished it. So shout out to those guys. I guess the Bucks big three. Shout out to them. The Nets. KD with the 48 points, and I just think he ran out of gas. He definitely just ran out of gas at the end. I know people are going to try and pin this game against KD because it's popular to do that, but you can't argue with what this man has done in this series, in this game, Game 5. Like, you can't argue with what this man has done, man. This game doesn't affect his legacy. I don't want to hear nothing like that, bro. Like, don't come to me with those conversations, man, because you're not gonna get a response out of me at all. But yeah, it was one of those just weird games, man. The bench had 0 points for the Brooklyn Nets. No scoring off the bench for them. Blake Griffin played really well. You think if you get 17 and 11 from Blake Griffin, that would be a good game. Like, you would think you might win that game, but it just wasn't the case for the Nets. Bruce Brown, he was one of the most valuable players on the court. He was making it tough on Jrue Holiday. He was making a lot of key plays, getting offensive rebounds, finishing in the paint. He had a very good game, too. I really think the biggest downfall for this Nets team, man, was like the jump shooting. It just wasn't there, man. The jump shooting, like Joe Harris is usually lights out, and he wasn't lights out in this series at all. Joe Harris wasn't lights out in this series at all. I think that was a big factor. I think that was a big time factor. He hit 3 threes tonight, but it was just like you expect Joe Harris to. He's one of the most efficient jump shooters in the league from downtown. You expect him to be able to hit those shots, but it's a Game 7, and he's already been struggling. So you just know every shot is more and more critical in the Game 7. And it was just a tough night for him, tough series for him. And that is I think, a small reason, but I think, if he shoots it a little bit better, this series probably doesn't even go 7, I believe. I really do think that because there were some games where he just really struggled to shoot the ball. And a couple of those games were games that they lost. So that it definitely would have helped if Joe Harris was more on his game. But you got to give a lot of credit to the Bucks for making it tough defensively for the Brooklyn Nets team as a whole. You could tell James Harden just wasn't himself, man. Even though he had 22, 9, and 9, you could just tell that hamstring. It's not 100%, but you got to give him a lot of credit for for battling through, because if you've had a hamstring injury before, you know that's not an injury that you can play with. Like, it's something that can easily get re-aggravated, which we seen he re-aggravated in game 1. And the fact that he was able to come back by game 5, you got to give a lot of credit to him. But it just wasn't enough, man. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be for the Nets. It's like it's like a what if situation. I believe it's definitely a what if situation. But like I said, man, you got to give a lot of credit to the Bucks, a lot of credit to Giannis, man. I made a tweet. I said I think this is the best game I've ever seen Giannis play, and he's had some big games. But I just think the way that he controlled the flow of this game, the way that he didn't settle, was what I like to see from a 2-time MVP. And we question if he can do this in the postseason, if he can be the best player on a championship team. He's getting to show that, and I think he's had a very good playoff series. He's had a very good playoff run, and this Game 7 was an exclamation point on what he's shown us so far. So big shout out to Giannis. A big shout out to Giannis. I still would, like to see some facets of his game improve, but what he's good at, he's one of the best at, like finishing in the paint, his off-ball defense. He's just one of the best at everything that he excels at. So I got to give a lot of credit where it's due to Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2-time MVP. Moving on to the conference finals for second time in his career. Now it's like the door's open, man. I mean, I know Philly could potentially be there, but I don't think, honestly, I don't think there's a big disparity between those two teams. I mean, I think the Nets was the team that you would have to go through. Now, you do have to worry maybe about, fatigue, but, I mean, Philly's going through a 7-game series too, so there's really no excuses. There's no excuses, man, for the Bucks, for Giannis, for Coach Budenholzer. There's no excuse for these guys not to get to the finals. And at this rate, there's no excuse for them not to be a champion this season, man. There's no LeBron on the other side. There's no Golden State Warrior team on the other side. There is the Phoenix Suns, who I really love, but Chris Paul, his status for this series is kind of up in the air. We don't know what's up with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. We really don't know what's up with them. So, I mean, if you're the Bucks, the time is now. The time is now to win a championship. Great job beating this Brooklyn Nets team, but the job's not finished. The job is not finished, and you still got another series ahead of you before the finals. And there's no excuse not to win a championship this year. I really believe that. Shout out to the Bucks for knocking off the Brooklyn Nets. What a Game 7. If you missed it, I definitely recommend rewatching it because it was an instant classic, man. Be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you are new. Rick Knows Hoops. I'm out, y'all. Peace.